Hello everyone, welcome to Illuminating Astrology. My name is Elena Lumin, and in this video I want to talk to you about the new moon in Capricorn, which occurred just a couple of days ago. Lunations are very important in astrologers' practice because they allow to look at the few weeks ahead, or sometimes a few months ahead, and make predictions for the world. They belong to the part of practice called mundane astrology, astrology of the world. And the new moon usually has impact for at least a few weeks and allows us to get both practical and spiritual themes for those weeks. But I believe this new moon is particularly important because it correlates in its layout and its energy with the winter solstice chart. And the winter solstice chart has a longer, stronger impact. It influences the world for at least a few months. And this new moon also correlates with the recent eclipse, which occurred in September, with very similar themes focused on Earth, security, frugality, manifestation, goals, and to a certain degree, our relation with authorities. So a little bit about this later. So this is a very super important new moon. In addition, right now in the sky, there's a lot of concentration of energy. This year is very remarkable. Not only it's a year of new beginnings, but we will have stellium of planets, which is 3 or 4 more planets traveling together in different signs during the year. And recently, in the month of January, this emphasis was in Capricorn. So on the new moon, we had many planets in Capricorn, and it's a strong concentration of energy in that element. Now planets have shifted, or almost all have shifted to Aquarius. We'll talk about this a bit later. But every sign, or almost every sign this year, will be affected sooner or later with this kind of concentrated planetary force. Here's the lunation chart set for the United States. The themes of the new moon would be true for any country in the world, but how the country is affected will be based on where those planets fall in the houses. So for the United States and for Canada, it will be similar chart. The lunation falls into the 8th house, and all planets, Mars, Mercury, the moon, Sun, Venus, and Pluto are all in the 8th house. That's pretty remarkable. It's a very strong concentration of force. So on the one hand, it influences the financial sector of the country. Certainly it is about taxes, income, tariffs, things that are related to getting money from other people and including the countries from abroad. The lunation influences the whole world, and for the whole world, the same energies will be true, but in each country, in each capital, those planetary energy will fall in different houses, signifying different areas of life. If we look at it globally, the lunation speaks of great emphasis on the resources, great emphasis on being practical and frugal, perhaps renegotiation of resources, and for many government, managing their budgets, tightening the belts. But specifically for the United States, it falls into the 8th house, which very much has to do with the money of other people. And so that puts emphasis on tariffs, trying to gain money with negotiations and different agreements with other countries. And it will have both positive and negative. On the positive, some money can be obtained. On the negative, people in other countries and inside may feel discontent, may feel affected by the tariffs and the changing economical politics, and some losses may occur. For example, tariffs may bring increases of prices within the United States, or it can be in some ways beneficial. But for the government, it is really very much about collecting the resources, managing the budgets better. Another manifestation of the 8th house is also collecting money from the affairs related to death and dying. So it may be changes in the laws. The new moon is always about the people. The moon is oppressed by the sun, so the people may feel discontent, or they may feel that the new initiatives are going against their practical securities. Also, emphasis on the 8th house indicates anxieties, worries of the mind. It could mean that people get depressed or they give in to their feelings of fear and discontent. Also, there could be fights and confrontations between the government and the people, though Saturn representing the government sextiles and receives the planetary energy in Capricorn. So even the decisions of the government may be unpopular, government actually is more responsive to the people's wishes. Another emphasis on the 8th house is about death and dying, and it could mean that we would lose some prominent people, especially important females or people in publishing and writers or artists. Another manifestation of the eighth house is about death and dying. Of course, many people may feel anxieties. It is a good time of grieving and letting go if you had lost someone. If you are grieving a loss of a loved one, if you are grieving a loss of an ideal or belief, it is really a good time to process the feelings, to work with them, because we're actually collectively at the end of a cycle. Certainly in the United States, many things come to an end, which we can see not only because the new moon is at the end of Capricorn, but because Saturn and Neptune also at the end, last degrees of the sign, and the ascendant is also in the late degree of Gemini. So an ending of sorts is coming. It is a time to complete matters, to deal with them, to grieve and let go. But on a more everyday basis, having Mercury, Mars in the eighth house might suggest people kind of lose their composure, or there's fights or disagreements. Certainly disagreements between the people and the government are likely. However, Saturn, both ruler of the new moon and represents in the government, sextiles it and receives. So whatever dissatisfactions, whatever frustrations people may feel, or on that note, partners of the United States, the government may be somewhat receptive to it, because sextile suggests things can work out. As to the country's wealth and benefits, I think there's good and bad. Certainly, there are some losses, but some gains are indicated by Jupiter in the second house. It is retrograde, so it is diminished, but it is still a beneficial energy. So certainly Jupiter brings income, but especially for the fourth house, which relates to the mines, lands, real estate, it might be a bit challenging time. The fifth house, representing the stock market, also might be entering in some kind of new stage, though I think it's a little bit more stable because Venus, representing the stock market, just entered as in the sign of Aquarius. And of course, the most important thing, Saturn, Neptune, globally and for the United States, sitting in the last degrees of Pisces. We are about to embark on a great change. Many astrologers speak about dissolution of the old structure, dissolution of the old beliefs. Maybe new ideologies, new things will come to be. But all of us have to face the realities as they are. We have to face the truth, because Saturn demands structure, clarity, some kind of form, and Neptune dissolves. So old forms dissolve, but as they move to Aries in January and February, respectively, we will have new beginnings, new forms of governance and structure. There is a danger of death and dying for the ruling class, for the prominent people, but I think lunation, more suggests in anxieties, concentration on change and certain instability. So it's really a good time to complete things, to put especially financial things in order. Now, in the more spiritual sense, the North Node shows the future, and it has an interesting correlation. The North Node, according to a more traditional view, is a time to investigate, to seek hidden knowledge, hidden truth. It is possible that public is seeking more information, but also public may be seeking some spiritual meaning, hidden truths to sustain us in those times of transition. And Saturn Neptune moving to a new sign might indicate a birth of new ideologies, new technologies, might indicate the birth of new governance. Now let's take a look how the new moon chart influences the chart of the United States, because it'll give us additional details about what's to come in the next few weeks. Depending on which version of the US chart one is using, you may get different results, but I'm using the one with Sagittarius rising, which is for July 4th, 1776, around 5:10 p.m. And within that chart, the emphasis of the eighth house very much connects with the second house. Again, it's about money and resources, income and profits for the country and for the common people as well. Because the new moon is a time when the moon is oppressed, it suggests dissatisfaction of many people, or them feeling that they have less, or they have to scrutinize and save the money. That again might relate, for example, to the student loans that have to be repaid, some other financial matters, maybe social services that people feel are not as abundant. So when you overlay the charts together, the emphasis is very much on the second house. So it is about resources, about finances, about having things in order. And for the common people, there might be some sense of dissatisfaction, some sense of needing to be frugal or preserve resources more. But on a more spiritual, more psychological sense, it really is the good time to have the budgets, to scrutinize everything, both to scrutinize not only financial matters, but also to prioritize where the energy is invested. In addition, Saturn Neptune, the dissolution of the structures and creation of new, is going to go for the fourth house for the United States. So that suggests some shift in even foundation in some policies or even leadership within the country. But the fourth house also has to do with the mines and earth and real estate, also the earth and the minerals. So some challenges might be in that area. And one more thing with the Saturn Neptune connecting with the fixed star Shed, this might be turbulent time in the seas. There may be accidents involving water or the ships. And so all people who work with water are advised to be cautious and careful. There could be fights and disagreements between common people and government might retaliate. But as I said earlier, I think things can be worked out. On the positive, Jupiter is transiting the 8th house for the United States. It's a Jupiter return. So after March, I anticipate some financial increases for the United States. And I also looked at the ingress chart for Aries, which I will talk about in a separate video, and it suggests financial improvements for the United States for the year 2026. But for now, it's tightening things up, structuring, trying to figure out methods that work. Finally, the spiritual message from the new moon to all of us is again to be down to earth, to be realistic, to set up the new goals, to remember that difficulties or challenges many of us may feel with the Capricorn energy, like we have to attend to the duties that we perhaps don't want to do or we resist. So certainly a sense of patience and knowing that liberation always will come, or after hard work, we usually bear the results of our work, whether spiritually or physically. So perhaps working on the patience and resourcing oneself is the call of the day. I looked also at the Sabian symbol for the new moon, which is a woman reading the tea leaves. And I thought that's really interesting. So for many of us, it's important to divinate. So astrology helps us to make divinations into the future, but divination can be in many different forms. Observe the nature, observe the sky, observe the signs in nature and around you, read the cards, or work with whatever energy helps you to get your intuition stronger. Because in spite of Capricorn energy being very earthy and focused on earthy matters and survival and security, it's also a lot about intuition and about seeing beyond just the earthy physical things. Again, the chart very much emphasizes looking for the divine truths, reading the signs, staying connected with the universe, staying connected with the positive energy, maybe even connecting with the planetary energies to feel uplifted, not to feel oppressed by what's happening. This year promises to be a remarkable year. Certainly, there's a lot to look forward to. And even as I record this, we already shifted from Capricorn energy into Aquarius energy, which is a completely different focus with new ideas, new inventions, technological inventions, new thoughts entering the public sphere, the change of arts and culture, maybe new forms of art coming up, or certainly something new in arts that we can look forward to. And this year promises this kind of focus of energy almost on every sign. So each of us would feel like a new start, like a boost of energy that we can work with. These are my thoughts about the new moon. There's much more to say, but there will be separate videos. I'll talk separately about the mundane astrology of 2026. I am completing a presentation, which I'm going to do on Friday, about mundane astrology of the world. It's going to be for the Chinese astrologers, but people who are interested are welcome to join. I'll leave information in the box. Let me know in the comments how you experience this new moon, these events. What do you think about the times we're living in? And stay tuned for more. Thank you very much for your support. If you're new to my channel, a subscription, your like, your comment is very much appreciated. Thank you and stay tuned for more.